When I pushed my father off the top of that abandoned building, I didn't feel remorse, I felt relief. After 22 years breathing the same air as that monster, I could finally breathe free. You're going to judge me. You're going to say I'm a murderer, a criminal, someone who deserves to rot in a cell. But before you do that, before you decide who I am, let me tell you what I discovered. Let me tell you why that man didn't deserve to live. Because when you know the truth, the real truth, the one nobody imagines, maybe you'll understand that some secrets are too heavy to carry and that some people simply don't deserve to exist. My name is Joseph. I'm 22 years old, and I've been free for 8 months after spending 3 years in a youth detention center. I got out earlier than expected for good behavior and because my lawyer argued psychological issues related to my case. Today I live in a small apartment downtown. I work at an auto repair shop and go to therapy twice a week. That's what my life is like now. But it wasn't always like this. When I was 19 years old, I pushed my father off a 7-story building. He died instantly. The police found me sitting next to the body, completely calm, waiting. I didn't try to run, didn't make up excuses. When they asked me why I did it, I just said because he deserved it. The newspapers called me a monster, a psychopath. They said I was a disturbed young man who killed his own father for no apparent reason. My mother, who had abandoned me when I was 5 years old, appeared on television crying, saying she never imagined her son would be capable of something like that. People who barely knew me gave interviews talking about how I was strange, quiet, always kind of weird. Nobody asked why, really why. Nobody wanted to know what happened inside that house all those years. And most importantly, nobody discovered what I discovered a few weeks before I did what I did. Because if they had discovered it, maybe the story told would have been completely different. I know many of you have already judged me, already decided I'm just another criminal trying to justify the unjustifiable. And maybe you're right. Maybe I really am a murderer who deserves everything that happened to me. But I'm asking for just one thing. Give me a chance to tell the whole story from beginning to end, uncut, uncensored, because what I discovered about my father, man, that changed everything. It changed who I am, how I see the world. And most importantly, it made me understand that sometimes the worst thing that can happen isn't discovering you were abused your whole life. It's discovering why you were abused. And believe me when I say, the reason was much, much worse than anything I could have imagined. During 3 years in the detention center, I had a lot of time to think, to process, to try to understand how I got to that point. The sessions with the psychologist there helped me organize my memories, put everything in perspective. She made me write everything, every detail, every feeling. And it was through writing that I realized my story needed to be told, not to redeem myself. I don't know if there's redemption for what I did, but because someone needs to know the truth. Someone needs to understand that monsters aren't born out of nowhere. They're created, and sometimes they create other monsters in the process. I spent my entire life getting beaten by my father. 19 years suffering physical and psychological violence almost every day. 19 years wondering what I had done so wrong to deserve that. And for 19 years I had no answer. Until I did. And when I did, when I finally understood the reason, I wished I had never looked for it. Because some truths destroy you inside in a way no beating ever could. If you're really paying attention to me right now, if you want to know what I discovered, I need you to like this video, subscribe to the Traumatic Accounts channel, turn on the notification bell, and comment down below where you're watching this from. Seriously, I need to know if there are people who really care about hearing this story to the end, because what comes next isn't easy to tell. I promise you one thing. When I finish telling everything, when you know exactly what happened and, most importantly, what I discovered about my father, you'll understand why that day at the abandoned building wasn't just anger, wasn't just revenge, it was survival. It was the only way out I saw after discovering a truth that nobody should have to carry alone. So stay with me, because this story is going to make you question everything you think you know about family, about pain, and about how far a person can go when they discover their whole life was based on a lie. I was born in 2003, in a small town in the Midwest. My mother's name was Claire and my father, Anthony. In the first years of my life, things were relatively normal, or at least that's what the few memories I have from that time tell me. I remember my mother singing while she cooked. I remember my father coming home from work and lifting me up in the air, making me laugh. Vague memories, kind of blurry like old photos that lost their color. Everything changed when I was 5 years old. My mother left. She simply packed her things one random day and left. She didn't leave a note, didn't say goodbye. I remember waking up and asking about her and my father saying in a strange voice, "Your mother left. It's just me and you now." For years, I believed she had abandoned us because she didn't love us, because she didn't love me. Children don't understand nuances, don't understand complexities of adult relationships. Children only understand. My mother left because I wasn't enough. And that's what I carried with me, that feeling of not being enough. What I didn't know, what I only found out many years later, was that my mother hadn't left by choice. She had escaped from my father. But back then, at 5 years old, I didn't understand any of that. After she left, my father changed. Or maybe he had always been that way, and my mother functioned as a shield between him and me. I don't know. But what I do know is that after we were alone, hell began. At first, they were small things. A slap on the back of the neck when I spilled milk, a shove when I took too long to get ready for school. My father started drinking. Every day he came home from work. He was a mechanic at a shop and went straight to the fridge to get beer. 1, 2, 5, 10. I lost count. The more he drank, the worse it got. I was 6 years old when I took my first real punch. I had broken a plate by accident, that's all. A cheap plastic plate. And my father came with so much anger, so much fury, that I didn't even have time to defend myself. The punch hit me in the stomach and I fell to the floor breathless, trying to breathe, feeling like I was going to die. He stood there, looking at me on the floor, and you know what he said? "Get up. Stop being dramatic." And I got up because children obey. Children don't question. Children just try to survive. That became routine. Anything could be a reason to get beaten. Bad grade at school, noise while he watched TV, leaving a dirty cup in the sink, breathing too loud, existing. I learned quickly to walk silently through the house, to not make noise, to become invisible. But even being invisible, I couldn't completely escape. There was one time, I was 8 years old, when I wet the bed. I was having constant nightmares. Nightmares where my father hurt me in increasingly worse ways. And one night I woke up wet with pee. I tried to clean it myself, tried to hide it, but he found out. He dragged me to the bathroom by my hair, put me under the shower with ice-cold water, and left me there for almost an hour, shaking, crying, begging him to let me out. He stood at the door drinking beer, just watching. "Maybe this way you'll learn not to be a baby," he said. I was 8 years old. 8. At school, I wore long-sleeve shirts, even in the heat, long pants. I tried to hide the marks. Teachers sometimes asked, but I had memorized the answer. Fell playing ball, or bumped into the corner of the table. Lies I repeated with so much conviction I almost believed them. Almost. Because when I got home, the truth was there waiting, in the form of a 6-foot man, big hands, smell of alcohol and rage in his eyes. I tried asking for help once. I was about 10 years old. I told a teacher my father hit me. She seemed worried, wrote everything down, said she was going to talk to the principal. 2 days later, social workers showed up at my house. My father was the picture of perfection, friendly, polite, concerned. He said I was a difficult child, that I lied a lot, that I made up stories to get attention because of my mother's absence. He showed them the clean house, showed them my organized room, showed them food in the fridge, and when they asked me in front of him if he hit me, I said no, because I saw the way he looked at me, that look that clearly said, "If you turn me in, I'll kill you." The social workers left satisfied, and that night my father gave me the worst beating of my life until then, with a belt, with his hands, with the sole of his shoe. He beat me so much I passed out. When I woke up, I was in my bed. It hurt to breathe, hurt to move, hurt to exist, and I never asked for help again. I learned there was nobody, that it was just me and that man, and that I needed to endure until I could get out of that house. As I grew up, the beatings continued, but they gained a new element: words. My father didn't just beat me, he destroyed me psychologically too, called me useless, stupid, a mistake, said my mother had left because of me, that I was a burden, that he would have a better life if I had never been born. And the worst part, I started to believe it. At 13 years old, I was already certain I was trash, that I didn't deserve love, that I was in fact a mistake that should never have happened. I became quiet, introspective. At school, nobody talked to me. I had no friends. I didn't participate in anything. I went, attended class, came back, and at home tried to be as invisible as possible. But my father always found me, always had a reason, always had rage. I spent years wondering why. What did I do? What's so wrong with me that makes my own father hate me like this? And I never had an answer. Until I was 19 years old, until the day I decided to investigate, because there was a specific incident 3 weeks before I did what I did that changed everything. My father came home drunk, as always, but this time he was crying and screaming things that made no sense. He looked at me with so much hatred, but also with something else, something I couldn't identify. And then he said something that never left my head. You shouldn't exist. You should never have existed. And I thought, I know that. You've told me that 1,000 times. But then he said something new. Every time I look at you, I see him and I can't take it anymore. Him? Him who? My father had never talked about any him before, and that night, drunk, he didn't want to explain. He gave me another beating and went to sleep. But that phrase kept hammering in my head. Every time I look at you, I see him. And that's when I started investigating. That's when I decided to find out once and for all what was so wrong with me. And when I found out, I understood that maybe there were things worse than getting beaten every day. Discovering the truth about who you are, about why you exist, that destroys you in a way no physical violence can. After that night when my father talked about him, I couldn't stop thinking who was this him that my father saw in me, why he hated me so much to the point of not being able to stand looking at me. I was 19 years old, had a part-time job at a diner near home. I saved every penny I earned in a secret account my father didn't know existed. My plan was simple: save enough money, wait until I turned 20 and leave, disappear, start over far from that hell. But that phrase changed everything, because it suggested there was something bigger, some secret, something that explained years and years of abuse. I started with my birth certificate. I took it secretly from a drawer in my father's room, read and reread it about 10 times. Mother, Claire Santos Smith. Father, Anthony Charles Smith. Nothing abnormal, nothing that explained. So I went after my mother. I had no contact with her since she left, but I knew she had appeared on TV when I was arrested, so she still lived in the same region. I looked on social media. It wasn't hard to find. Claire Santos Smith, 43 years old, married again, 2 small children. She had rebuilt her life, a life without me. I created a fake profile and sent a message. Said I was a childhood friend of her son, Joseph, and that I needed to talk to her about something important about him. She responded the same day, worried, asking if I was okay. I said I needed to meet her in person, that there were things about Anthony she needed to know about what was happening to me. She hesitated. Took 2 days to respond, but in the end she agreed. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop on the other side of town on a Saturday morning. When I arrived, she was already there. I recognized her right away, even though she had changed. Shorter hair, a few extra pounds, deep, dark circles. When she saw me and realized who I was, "Joseph," she whispered. I just nodded and sat in front of her. She started crying before I even opened my mouth. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm sorry for leaving. I had no choice. I needed to get out of that house or I was going to die." And then she told me my father had always been violent, that in the first years of marriage he already hit her, that she got pregnant with me, thinking a child would change him, would calm him, but it only got worse. He became more possessive, more aggressive. She endured until I turned 5, until the day he almost killed her, broke 3 of her ribs. She went to the hospital, and when she came back, she packed her bags and ran. Left everything behind, including me. "I tried to take you," she said, crying. "I swear I tried, but he said if I took you, he would find me and kill me. And I believed him. I was scared, and I left. I stayed silent, processing. Why does he hate me so much?" I finally asked. "Why does he do what he does to me?" She stopped crying. Looked at me with a strange expression. Fear, guilt, and something else. "You don't know?" she asked. "Don't know what?" She took a deep breath and then said, "Joseph, Anthony isn't your biological father. The coffee shop went silent around me, or maybe it was just in my head. My heart beat so hard I thought it was going to jump out of my chest. What? Anthony isn't your father, she repeated. Your biological father was his brother, Richard. I couldn't speak, couldn't process. She continued, the words coming out fast, as if she had kept that for years and could finally release it. Anthony and I were together, but things were already difficult. He drank, was aggressive, and I was unhappy. Richard was different, was kind, funny, treated me well. We got close and it happened. It was just once, one night, and I got pregnant. Anthony, you know. He knows. Found out when you were about 2 years old, did a DNA test without me knowing, and when it was confirmed you weren't his son, he became another man, or rather became the monster he always was. But worse. Much worse. And Richard, my father, where is he? Her face changed, became darker. Richard died 3 months after Anthony found out the truth. How car accident. At least that's what they said. But I always thought it was strange. Anthony and Richard had fought badly days before. Anthony swore he was going to get revenge, and then Richard died. My head was exploding. My father Anthony had raised me knowing I was his brother's son of his wife's betrayal with his own brother. And possibly he had killed Richard. Why didn't you tell me this before? Why did you leave me with him knowing he knew the truth? Because I was scared, she shouted, making some people in the coffee shop look. She lowered her voice. I was scared that if I spoke, he would kill you too. I thought that, despite everything, he wasn't going to hurt a child. I was wrong. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Joseph. I left that coffee shop completely destroyed. My whole life had been a lie. Anthony wasn't my father. He was the guy who had raised me out of pure hatred, who beat me because every time he looked at me, he saw the brother who betrayed him, saw the living evidence of his wife's betrayal. I was the constant reminder of everything he lost, and he made me pay for it every day of my life. I got home that day and locked myself in my room. Anthony was working. I stayed hours sitting on the bed just thinking, processing, trying to understand. I had lived 19 years of abuse because I was the wrong guy's son, because my mother had betrayed Anthony with his own brother, and I paid the price. But there was more. I knew there was. Because if Richard had died in strange circumstances right after Anthony found out the truth, then maybe that accident wasn't an accident. I started investigating. I looked for old news online. Found the article about Richard Smith's death, 35 years old, killed in a car accident on the highway. Lost control of the vehicle and hit a tree. Died instantly. But there was something strange. The article mentioned that the police had investigated because there were signs that the brakes had been sabotaged. But the investigation was closed for lack of evidence. Sabotaged brakes. Anthony was a mechanic. Holy shit. He had killed his own brother, had killed my biological father, and then stayed with me. Raised me. But not out of kindness, not out of responsibility, out of revenge. Every beating, every cruel word, every moment of terror, everything was revenge. I was the target of his revenge for something I didn't even know had happened. I spent the next few days in a state of shock. Anthony noticed something was different about me but didn't ask. He never asked. He only existed in his own world, drank, beat me when he felt like it, repeated the cycle, but I was changing inside. The anger I had kept my whole life, that anger I directed at myself, started to change direction. For the first time, I wasn't angry at myself. I was angry at him. One night, he came home drunk again, more drunk than normal, could barely walk. Came up to me and said, "You know you're an aberration, right, that you should never have been born?" I, for the first time in my life, responded, "I know the truth. I know you're not my father. I know about Richard." His face changed. The drunkenness seemed to disappear for a second. He went pale. And then, red. Who told you that? Doesn't matter. I know. I know you raised me just to get revenge on my mother and Richard. I know you sabotaged his car. I know everything. I expected him to deny it, to scream, to beat me, but he laughed. He laughed and said, "So what? What are you going to do? Turn me in? Who's going to believe you? You're nothing. You always were nothing. And that piece of shit Richard was too. He deserved to die. And you? You deserve every punch, every word, every second of shit I make you go through. because you're his son, and as long as I look at you, I'll remember what he did. He approached, put his finger on my chest. You should thank me for not killing you along with him. And it was at that moment that something broke inside me. It wasn't anger, it wasn't sadness, it was clarity. Clarity that that man was never going to stop, that he was going to keep destroying me until I couldn't take it anymore and did something to myself, or until he killed me for real in a fit of rage. I had two choices. Let him destroy me completely or destroy him first. And for the first time in my life, I chose the second option. After that conversation, I knew there was no going back. Anthony had confessed, had admitted he killed Richard, that he raised me just to make me pay for something I wasn't guilty of. And he made it clear he was never going to stop. I spent 3 days planning, 3 days thinking about how to do it. I didn't want it to be obvious, didn't want to get caught immediately, but at the same time, part of me didn't care, because what I wanted most was to end that, end him. Anthony had a routine. Every Saturday morning, he went to an abandoned building in the old side of town. It was a construction that had been left half-finished years ago, and he went there to drink alone. I think it was the only place where he felt at peace, away from me, away from the constant reminder of betrayal. I knew this because a few months before, I had followed him once. Curiosity. I wanted to know where he went when he disappeared for hours. That Saturday, I decided to go along. I woke up early. Anthony was in the kitchen, already with a beer in his hand, even though it was 8 a.m. He looked at me with surprise when he saw me up. "What are you doing awake?" he grumbled. "Going for a walk." "Whatever." He grabbed a few more beers from the fridge and left. I waited about 5 minutes and followed him. Kept my distance. He was so focused on getting to his building that he didn't even notice I was behind him. When he entered the building, I waited a bit longer. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my ears. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't turn back. Not anymore. I entered the building. It was a depressing place. Peeling walls, smell of mold and urine, stairs without railings. Anthony always went to the 7th floor, the last one. There was a view of the whole city, and he would sit at the edge, drinking, looking at nothing. I climbed slowly. Each step seemed to weigh a ton. When I got to the 7th floor, I saw him. He was sitting exactly where I expected, legs hanging outside the building, beer in hand, looking at the horizon. He heard my footsteps and turned his head. "You followed me?" "Yes." He laughed. That bitter laugh I knew so well. "What for? Want to get beaten in a different place today?" I approached. Stood about 10 feet from him. "I want answers." "Answers about what, kid? Already told you everything you need to know. You're my brother's son. I hate you. End of story." "Why didn't you give me up for adoption? If you hate me so much, why did you keep me?" He took another sip of beer, was silent for a while. And then, "Because I wanted you to suffer. I wanted you to grow up knowing you weren't loved. I wanted every day of your life to be shit, just like Richard made my life turn to shit. He was your brother. So what? Brother doesn't do what he did, doesn't sleep with his own brother's wife, and you killed him." Anthony turned to me, looked into my eyes and smiled. "I did, and it was the best thing I ever did. Just wish I had killed you along with him. That was the trigger. All the beatings, all the nights crying in my room, all the times I thought about killing myself. Everything came at once and I didn't think. I just acted. I ran to him." Anthony was drunk, slow. He tried to get up, but I was faster. I pushed him with all the strength I had. He stumbled, tried to grab onto something, but there was nothing. And then he fell. I saw him fall, saw his body spinning in the air, heard the sound of the impact. And you know what I felt? Relief. Pure and absolute relief. I went down the stairs slowly. When I got down, his body was there, twisted, bloody, dead. I sat next to him, didn't even try to run. I called the police myself. I killed my father. I'm here with the body. You can come get me. The woman on the other side of the line tried to ask questions, but I hung up. I stayed there, waiting. When the police arrived, I was calm, calmer than ever in my life. They handcuffed me, put me in the squad car, took me to the station. In the first hours, they tried to make me talk. They wanted to know why, they wanted to understand. I just said, he deserved it. They thought I was in shock, that I was confused. They called psychologists, social workers, Everyone trying to understand how a 19-year-old kid could kill his own father and be so calm. It was only on the second day that my public defender, a woman named Dr. Helen, managed to get me to really talk. She entered the interrogation room and sat in front of me. "Joseph, I read the police report. I know what you did, but I need to know why. Because if you don't tell me, I'm not going to be able to help you." And then I told her everything. The years of abuse, the discovery about Richard, Anthony's confession, everything she was writing down. And when I finished, she looked at me with an expression that was half pity, half horror. "Joseph, why didn't you report the abuse before? I tried once, nobody believed me. And then I gave up. Do you have proof, medical records, photos of the injuries?" "No, I always hid everything," she sighed. "This complicates things a lot, but I'll do what I can." The trial was quick. My defense argued emotional self-defense, argued that I had been a victim of abuse for years, argued that Anthony had killed my biological father and raised me just to torture me. But the prosecution argued it was premeditated, that I had followed him to the building, that I had pushed him intentionally, and technically they were right. It was premeditated. I wanted to kill him. The jury took 3 hours to deliberate. When they returned, they found me guilty of manslaughter with mitigating circumstances. The judge sentenced me to 5 years in a youth detention center with possibility of parole after 3 years for good behavior. When I heard the sentence, I felt nothing. Neither relief nor fear, just emptiness. They took me to the detention center that same day, and that's where I spent the next 3 years of my life. The detention center wasn't the hell I expected. Actually, compared to the life I had at home, it was almost peaceful. There were rules, routine, 3 meals a day, and nobody beat me. In the first months, I was kind of in a state of shock. I woke up at dawn, thinking I was going to hear Anthony's voice screaming, thinking I was going to feel the belt on my back, but there was nothing, just silence. It was strange in a good way. I started doing mandatory therapy. The psychologist there, Dr. Marcia, was insistent. She wanted me to talk about everything, about Anthony, about Richard, about my mother, about what I felt. At first I resisted, but over time I realized that talking helped. Putting everything out there, organizing my thoughts, understanding what had happened, helped. She made me write, said writing was therapeutic, that it would help me process the trauma, and she was right. I filled entire notebooks with memories, feelings, reflections, and it was through writing that I started to understand something. I was a victim, but I was also a perpetrator. Anthony had destroyed me, had made me suffer in unimaginable ways, but in the end I made the choice to kill him. I could have run away, could have reported him, could have chosen another path, but I chose violence, and that haunts me. I don't regret taking him out of my life. I don't regret ending the cycle of abuse, but I regret how I did it. I regret having become in that moment as monstrous as him. Because when I pushed him off that building, I wasn't thinking about justice. I was thinking about revenge, about making him feel a fraction of the pain he caused me. And that makes me what? I spent 3 years in the center thinking about that, 3 years trying to rebuild myself. I learned a trade in there, auto mechanics, ironically the same profession as Anthony. At first I hated it, but over time I realized it was my way of reframing, of taking something that was his and transforming it into mine. I made friends in there, met other guys who had similar stories, abuse, trauma, violence, and all of us trying to understand how we got there. There was a guy, Daniel, who told me once, "We don't choose the shit that happens to us, but we choose how we react. And sometimes we react the wrong way, but that doesn't mean we're bad. It means we're human." I think about that a lot. When I got out 8 months ago, I was different. Not healed, not recovered, but different, more aware, more alive. Today I live in a small apartment, work at a repair shop, go to therapy twice a week, avoid alcohol, avoid violence, avoid anything that reminds me of Anthony. But the scars are still here, physical and emotional. I still have nightmares, still wake up in the middle of the night, thinking I hear his voice, still catch myself looking over my shoulder, expecting him to show up. But he's not going to show up, because he's dead. And I'm responsible for that. There are days I feel at peace with what I did. There are days I hate myself for it. The truth is, there's no right answer. There's no you did the right thing or you did the wrong thing. There's only what happened. And what do I do with that now? My mother tried to contact me after I got out. I didn't respond. I don't know if someday I'll want to have a relationship with her. Maybe yes, maybe no. For now, I'm focused on myself, on rebuilding myself. I'm not a victim anymore, but I'm not a monster either. I'm just Joseph, a 22-year-old guy trying to live with the choices he made and trying to make better choices from here forward. If you made it this far and understood what I went through, if you really care about my story, I need you to like this video now. Subscribe to the Traumatic Accounts channel, turn on the notification bell, and comment down below what time it is while you're watching this. Seriously, I need to know there are people who listen to these stories and understand it's not black and white, that it's all much more complicated. I don't know if I deserve forgiveness, don't know if I deserve a second chance, but I'm trying. I'm trying to be better than the man who raised me. And maybe in the end, that's what matters.